Hello everyone. Today I will be talking about Linux file systems. So Linux follows directory structure. A directory in Linux is similar to a folder in Windows operating system. It can contain different directories or different files inside it. So whenever we are talking about directories, there are two directories which are very famous and very common, that is root and home. Now I've seen a lot of professionals getting confused between these two terms. So let's look at both of them individually. Let's start with root. So root in Linux has three interpretations. The first one is the root directory. So the root directory is the first directory in a Linux system. It is the topmost directory. Any file, any directory other than root directory will have a path starting from the root directory. The root directory has a symbol of forward slash. So if I go to my terminal and I do cd space forward slash, I'm inside my root directory. So now if I do pwd, I can clearly see that my present working directory is forward slash, which is my root directory. If I do ls, I can see all the directories and files that are present inside my root directory. Now the second term is the root user. Root user is basically the super user in Linux. It has access and privileges to all the files, all the directories, and it has every permission that is possible. Now, if I want to know that whether my current user is a root user or not, I have a command of id. id returns a UID, and if a UID is 0, this means that our current user is a root user. So if I try id command over here, we can see that the UID is 1000 and not 0. So clearly our current user is not a root user. The third term is the root home. Root home is the home directory of a root user. Now in Linux, every user has his or her home directory. But since we can see that the root user is a privileged one, it has its separate home in a different location, and that is called as the root home. It has a path of forward slash and root. So if I try to enter cd space forward slash root, it gives me a permission denied error. This is because our current user is not a root user and I want to enter into the root home of root user, which is denied. So for that I need to enter my system, enter my command prompt in with access to root user. So I have a command of sudo space dash s, and now if I enter the credentials of my root user, now I'm logged in as a root user. And if I now do cd root, I can clearly enter into the root home since I'm logged in as a root user. So this is about all about root. Now if we if we talk about home, now home, as I said earlier, that every user in a Linux system is having his or her personal home. Inside the home directory, he can save any file or any personal data. So that is the user's personal data. Now it has the symbol of tilde. So now if I want to enter inside the home of current user, I can easily do cd space tilde, and if I do pwd, I can clearly see that this is the home directory or the home of the current user. So this is how we can enter inside the home. So you can clearly see the difference between what a home is and what a root is. Now the next thing is path. So path is basically the location of a file or a directory in the Linux system. Now there are two kinds of path in Linux. The first one is absolute path and the second one is relative path. So absolute path is the path that is starting from the root directory. So it is the complete path. Since we know that the root directory is the first directory of a Linux, so absolute path gives us the complete path of a Linux directory. While the relative path gives us the path starting from the PWD. So wherever we are currently, be it in any directory, so from that directory to the required directory, the path between them is our relative path. Let me demonstrate this. So if I go to my home and I do ls, I can see there is a folder A. I can go to A, and if I do ls, there is a folder B. If I do B, ls, so if I do pwd over here, so this is the absolute pwd gives me the absolute path of the current folder B. Now if I go two steps back and I do pwd, I am at my home directory. So if I want to go into B from here without entering my absolute path, I can easily go to cd A and B. So this A slash B, this is my relative path. And if I go, sorry, A comma B, this is my relative path. So this is the difference between a relative path and an absolute path. So this is all about the file systems in Linux. I hope it's clear. So that's all from this video. Stay tuned to add more festoons into your knowledge garland. Till then, keep subscribing.